How are we doing, everybody? My name is Peter, welcome back. Before we begin though, firstly, if you're wondering where I am, uni accommodation, so a very different background for this video. Secondly though, and more importantly, since the release of my last video, the MU Core tier list one, I've seen about 30 of you subscribe to the channel. That video seems to be doing very well with all of you, and honestly, I can't remember the last time I had this big a subscriber increase from just one video. So if you happen to be one of those 30 people, then welcome to the channel. Thank you for being here. On to the topic at hand though. D'Angelo. He is and has been one of my favourite artists for many years now, and he is unquestionably one of the most essential names in neo-soul and R&B over the last 25 years. That is, despite only releasing 3 studio albums over the course of that time, with his most recent effort, 2014's Black Messiah, becoming one of the most critically acclaimed albums of the 21st century at large. Before we talk about Black Messiah though, I feel like it's pretty vital that I discuss the wider context of D'Angelo's career so that I can illustrate the path that he took to get to Black Messiah. So, D'Angelo's debut studio album, Brown Sugar, was released on the 3rd of July 1995. Brown Sugar is a very versatile album musically, combining elements of R&B, pop, funk, soul and hip-hop into one tightly wound neo-soul package. And it's often seen as one of the most important albums in the progression of neo-soul, as it brought a newfound commercial staying power to it. Rather impressively, as I'm sure you will agree, D'Angelo handles most of the production and the instrumentation on Brown Sugar by himself, and he also introduces his expressive singing voice to a very large audience, which just goes to show how talented the dude is. Brown Sugar revolves pretty much entirely around themes of love and romance, which was very common for neo-soul and R&B at the time. So despite sticking out in the scene because of his expressive singing voice and his overall multi-talent, he conceptually was yet to come into his own with this album. Nevertheless, Brown Sugar, massive critical success, receiving very positive reviews upon release, as well as commercial success, as it would spend 65 weeks on the Billboard Hot 200, peaking at number 22. It was also nominated for 4 Grammys: Best R&B Album, Best R&B Song for the title track, Best Male Vocal R&B Performance for the title track, and the same thing the next year for the song Lady. Of course, he didn't win in any of these categories because, well, it's the Grammys. They have a very long and documented history of not rewarding the most deserving talent. And if you actually want to go and see a video on whether or not the Grammys matter, it's a very in-depth and thoughtful video from a YouTuber called Mike the Snare. I will put that on the I information tab, and there'll also be a link in the description. But still, despite not winning in any of these categories, you could still see these nominations as a bit of an acknowledgement from the music industry, especially at such an early point in D'Angelo's career. By all accounts, Brown Sugar was a great debut and a great starting point for D'Angelo. After a 4.5-year hiatus, during which D'Angelo developed writer's block, he returned in the year 2000 with his second LP, Voodoo. Personally, I view this album as a big step up from Brown Sugar. Although Brown Sugar is great in its own right, I think this album is a lot more musically ambitious. Many of those same sounds from the realms of soul, funk, jazz and hip-hop remain on Voodoo, but this time they're packaged slightly differently. These songs are more like long-form jams. D'Angelo largely abandoned conventional song structures on Voodoo and shot for something more funky, eclectic and groovy. The content of this record is also much more varied than that of Brown Sugar, as D'Angelo explores themes such as materialism on Devil's Pie, faithfulness on Send It On, his African heritage on the closing track Africa, as well as many other things. Of course, you do still have songs about love, romance and sex. For example, the track Left and Right featuring Method Man and Redman, as well as the infamous untitled How Does It Feel, which we will talk more about in a moment. Voodoo brought D'Angelo even more critical and commercial success, as it received rave reviews upon release and peaked at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 200. It's often cited as one of the best albums of all time, as well as one of the best albums of the whole 2000s. So, coming off of a great debut album, followed by one of, if not the best neo-soul album of all time, what does D'Angelo do? Well, he goes on another hiatus. Only this time, it's not for 4 years, or 5 years, or 6 years, or even 10 years. No, try 14 years of studio album silence. Now, why on earth would an artist with so much creative and commercial potential just abandon that for more than a decade? Well, part of the reason is the growing perception at the time of D'Angelo as a sex symbol. Well, let's revisit one of the songs I was talking about, untitled How Does It Feel? One of D'Angelo's most well-known and best songs to date, in my opinion. If you haven't seen the music video for this song, well, it features D'Angelo presumably naked. It's a very intimate, very sensual video. This music video became extremely popular, and it's part of the reason why D'Angelo went on to be viewed as a sex symbol after its release, which is something he was clearly aware of and something he didn't exactly take very kindly to. A lot of things happened to D'Angelo during this lengthy hiatus. He struggled with alcoholism, his girlfriend left him, he suffered a car accident, and most of his family stopped contacting him. But even through all of this, he was still attempting a follow-up to Voodoo. Although it was a stagnant and a very tumultuous time in his life, it wasn't completely fruitless or unproductive. Anyway, after 14 very tough years for D'Angelo and 14 tough years for his fans awaiting his Voodoo follow-up, he finally dropped his third studio album, 2014's Black Messiah. This album saw D'Angelo enlist the help of instrumentalists, backing vocalists, session musicians to kind of guide this album in a particular direction that he had in mind, and this band has since been termed the Vanguard. Of course, D'Angelo did work with some other musicians on Voodoo, but Black Messiah feels much more like the work of a full band than anything else in D'Angelo's catalogue up to this point. Instrumentally, Black Messiah is rich, it's dense, it's textured. It does pull from some of the same places that his previous albums did, with those usual R&B, soul and jazz influences. However, this album also seamlessly weaves in the sounds of funk and rock in a very big way. The album kicks off with the song Ain't That Easy, which on its face is a love song, but when you examine the second verse in particular on this track, it may indicate that it could be interpreted as a meditation on the media. And given some of the other themes explored on Black Messiah, I don't think that's really that much of a reach. This track also features a wonderfully smooth and groovy fusion of funk and rock. And this contrasts very heavily with the next track, 1000 Deaths, which instead opts for a louder, more compressed, a murkier and a more uncompromising fusion of these two styles. It's one of the most unapologetically and overtly political tracks on this whole album, really of D'Angelo's entire career. 1000 Deaths samples speeches from former Black Panther chairman Fred Hampton, who is calling for peace amongst all races, as well as former New Black Panther Party chairman Khalid Abdul-Muhammad, who is talking about the supposed blackness of Jesus. Hampton advocated for peace between black and white people and also was a revolutionary socialist, whereas Abdul-Muhammad preached black independence and even opposed miscegenation, that is, interracial marriage and reproduction. Hearing these two voices sampled next to one another creates a very interesting contrast, and I think it could reflect the many conflicting stances that different black people have on the topic of racial injustice. D'Angelo's lyrics portray this very strong feeling of not wanting to back down or be a coward in the face of growing racial tensions, which right now is more relevant than ever. The following track, The Charade, is much more laid back in its approach, but it still features those same funk and rock influences. The lyricism on this one is a bit more poetic, but it still feels just as urgent and immediate as 1000 Deaths. One of my favourite songs on the album, Till It's Done, features some very thoughtful and impactful lyricism as D'Angelo kind of touches upon a general neglect of climate change, the adverse effects of ultimately pointless wars, as well as a simple but profound reflection on what our purpose is and where we came from. By the time you get to the song Prayer, a lot has happened on this album. D'Angelo and the Vanguard have touched upon some pretty heavy topics and have expressed a wide and dynamic range of emotions along the way. Prayer essentially acts as the hopeful centerpiece of Black Messiah because on one hand it sees D'Angelo acknowledge the plights that the black community faces in the United States, but it also sees him on the other hand place his faith and his trust in God that he's going to guide them through to the end of it. For all the socially aware observations that Black Messiah makes, there are also those Typical love-centered tracks that D'Angelo proved he was so good at crafting on his first two albums, only on Black Messiah they're delivered in a slightly different musical package. The track Sugar Daddy kicks off a very laid-back 3-track run on this album, injecting some super upbeat and very playful jazz funk into the mix. Really Love, the first track that was recorded for Black Messiah, pairs these wonderful string arrangements with acoustic guitar, and the song has a very nice Latin flair to it. Both parts of Back to the Future feel like this carefree, extended jam session that the band just decided to embark on while they were working on this album. The group vocals, as well as the playful interaction between the band members on these tracks, just gives them a very organic quality and an energy that I don't think you would find on Brown Sugar or Voodoo. I do love all three of these albums, I really do, but if you approached me and you said, hey, all three of these albums are going to be wiped off the face of the earth and you can pick one to save, I would save Black Messiah. I don't know if that's a hot take to you, maybe it is, let me know. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this video. To be honest, I really don't know what my ultimate goal was with making this video. I just kind of wanted to discuss an artist at length in the way that I've done here, since the way I typically do it is like a worst to best video, and those are unoriginal and they can get tiresome for me to create and probably for you to watch. Also, do forgive me on how late I was to put this video out. I've had it in the works for so long, but I've kind of neglected it for a while to work on uni stuff, but I should have a lot more time now moving forward. If you enjoyed this video, do consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel if you're a music fan of any kind. And you know, given that you're at the end of a video of me talking about D'Angelo for this long, I would guess you're a music fan in some capacity. Thank you all for watching, I appreciate you, and I'll see you again when I come up with another video idea.